PNB.
Thank you. Please take your seats. Troop Commander, kindly give your men tigas pahinga.
Because no, no, cause no.
I thank everyone for being here today to share in my retirement ceremony. This means so much to me as it were during my graduation days. And I am so blessed with your presence and for the kind introduction through AVP. How phenomenal you have made me sound. Thank you. Parang gusto ko na lang magbow. You see, I am supposed to say that I am just a poor boy, though my story is seldom told. Pero baka tuluyan na akong mapakanta. But what I mean to say is, I come from a humble family of a cultural minority in the highlands of Kalinga. No one could ever expect that I would become what I am now, even I myself. But God has a way of designing our lives that whoever you are, wherever you come from, He wants you to be great. I could hardly contain my gratitude to God. O Lord my God, what is man like me, that you are mindful of him, and the Son of Man, that you visit him? For you have made him a little lower than the angels, and you have crowned him with glory and honor. None of these things that I deserve, but your love, grace and mercy overflow and never change each day. You have used people to become my colleagues, friends, and supporters. You have destined me to become a part of the PNP organization, to be of service to your people. And in return, you have blessed me so abundantly. To our President, His Excellency Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr., I give my utmost gratitude for giving me the opportunity to hold a great responsibility. Likewise, my most sincere appreciation to our former SILG, now the National Security Advisor, Secretary Eduardo Anyo, for believing in me and my capabilities. Sir, thank you so much for being an instrument used by God in order for me to reach this star rank. I am also deeply grateful to our Chief PNP, the command group at the national headquarters, and the whole organization for the trust and confidence that you have bestowed upon me, even in most vital positions. My PNPA family, of course headed by our very own Director, Police Major General Samuel Camarista Nacion, and the Deputy Director, Police Brigadier General Jonathan Agdamag Cabal. Sirs, it has been a great honor and privilege to have served with all of you. To my Patnubay class of 1995 and their ladies, thank you so much for all your brotherly love and support. Some of them are here. May I request them to stand up, please, including the ladies, of course. Brigadier General Jason D. Guzman, the Commandant of Cadets. Brigadier General Arnold and Mrs. Argente, the Dean of Academics. Police Colonel and Mrs. Roel Berango. Police Brigadier General Paul Kenneth Lucas and Mrs. Paul Kenneth Lucas, Police Brigadier General and Mrs. Albert Magno, Police Colonel and Mrs. Erosito Miranda, Police Colonel and Mrs. Raul Takaka, Police Colonel and Mrs. Christopher de la Cruz, Retired Police Colonel and Mrs. Odi Madrideo, Police Brigadier General and Mrs. Dionisio Bartolome, Police Brigadier General Rogelio Simon, Police Brigadier General Bernie Uric, and others who are here. Ay, patnumay class 1905. Thank you for coming. Please sit down. Police Colonel and Mrs. Julius Guadamor. Thank you po. Mrs. Lorna Mata. Dito ba si Mrs. Cabe? Thank you. And of course to my former commanders. We have here Police Lieutenant General Israel Ibrahim Dixon, sir. Thank you, sir, for coming. He was my regional director at Pro Cordillera, and of course, sa DP. Thank you for coming, sir. And of course, Police Major General Ferdinand Daway. Sir, thank you for coming. He was my director at the Civil Security Group, and of course, DP rin. Sino pa ang mga... Thank you for your guidance and nurturing wisdom which has led me to my professional growth and brought me to greater heights. To all commission officers, my upperclassmen and underclassmen, men and women, of course, the non-commissioned officers and non-uniform personnel of these units that I have served, to my staff, office mates, and drivers for all your sacrifices and devotion to duty, including my own personal cause. To all my friends, especially those who are here right now, thank you for the beautiful gift and friendship. I have also seen one of my snappy upperclassmen, retired Colonel Bile Francaser. And of course, the Congressman of the Lone District of Kalinga, Congressman Allen Jesse Mangawang. Thank you, sir, for attending this. Lieutenant Colonel Joel Almendral from the Philippine Army, my classmate and best friend when I was in college. Together with him is the director of the TESDA, Director David Bungalion. Thank you, bro, for coming. And of course, Engineer Ruelos, thank you for coming. Sir Randy Ruelos. My relatives, Mr. and Mrs. Rian Bueno, Mr. and Mrs. Sherwin Remolar, thank you. Mr. and Mrs. Alvin K. Marsa Bakuyag, thank you. Hanilet and family. Then, of course, we have my cousin also, the Maestro, Albert Leo and family. Then from the heritage community, please stand up. Dito, pangalan nila Mr. and Mrs. Rodney Barayuga, Mr. and Mrs. Milky Garino, Mr. and Mrs. Rafael Salvio, Mr. and Mrs. Don Medrano, Engineer and Mrs. Lester Sulit, Mr. and Mrs. Alfonso Oñate, Mr. and Mrs. Ruben Carpizo, thank you. Mr. and Mrs. Mark Caro, Miss Arlette Adams, thank you. Mr. Marvin Campit, Mr. Nemuel Mostrales, Dr. Evelyn Alcoriza, Mrs. Jemima Ohano, and Drs. Ronald and Emma Paz. And of course, other friends who are listed here, Police Colonel Rex Malimban, the Chief of Staff of SAF. Thank you, Rex, for coming. Retired Colonel Loida and Sir Bustamante. Thank you, Ma'am and Sir. Retired Colonel Marie Hasmin, Ma'am, our classmate also. Police Lieutenant Colonel Duz Villanueva. Major Pat Ben Abo. Dito. Mr. and Mrs. Arman Antonio. Thank you, Arman. Mr. Rico Villacruz. Bro, thank you. Baka may nakalimutan pa ako. We have here with us, I don't know if there are CSG, members of the CSG family. Meron ba? My former units. At lahat po nang nandito. May I request them to stand up, please? Ay, wala na. Siguro. And last but not the least, I would like to pay tribute to my family. They are my constant source of inspiration and support. To my parents, Mr. Tajo Dangani and the late Mrs. Alice Dangani, who trained me up in the way I should go, so that even now that I am old, I still never departed from it. I also would like to thank my brother Edgar and all my relatives, both from the Dananao and Botbot tribes, for your love and support. To my in-laws, Mama Betty, Melon, Junior, and family, thank you so much. Most especially, I thank my wife, Eileen, and our children, Bea, Alfred II, and Tricia. Kindly stand up. Thank you. For being there always at my side. I am pretty sure that my wife is the most happy person now. She had always been very excited for me to retire. Inunahan na nga niya ako eh. After she retired, ito naman ngayon ang dream come true niya, ang aking retirement. But I always believe that this is not our timing, but God's timing. In the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 1 to 13, it is entitled, Everything Has Its Time. And I read and I quote, To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born, and a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to pluck what is planted, a time to kill, and a time to heal, a time to break down, and a time to build up, a time to weep, and a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to gain, and a time to lose, a time to keep, and a time to throw away, a time to tear, and a time to sue, a time to keep silence, and a time to speak, a time to love, and a time to hate, a time of war, and a time of peace. What profit has the worker from that in which he labors? I have seen the God-given task with which the sons of men are to be occupied. He has made everything beautiful in its time. Also, He has put eternity in their hearts, except that no one can find out the work that God does from beginning to end. I know that nothing is better for them than to rejoice and to do good in their lives, and also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy the good of all his labor. It is the gift of God. Yes, King Solomon was true enough to have said such, because I personally experienced all of this in my life's journey, not to exclude in my journey as a law enforcer. Time really flies. While I could still vividly remember all my memories that I am now to put in a capsule form, comprising my 31 years, 11 months, and 11 days of hard work, growth, and accomplishments. And I can say that it was really a beautiful ride. You know, ever since I entered the service, I always aim for 2 stars. The first one, I have already reached my rank now. And you are all part of this achievement. The other one still remains my goal. And I plan to double time, even after my retirement. In fact, I have this marching song as my inspiration to keep me in pursuing that goal. And I sing. I am thinking today of that beautiful land I shall reach when the sun goeth down, when through wonderful grace by my Savior I stand. Will there be any stars in my crown? Will there be any stars in my crown? When at evening the sun goeth down, when I wake with the blessed in those mansions of rest, will there be any stars in my crown? Brothers and sisters, may we all see each other again. For that star, this is my prayer. However, life in the police service was never a bed of roses. It was also full of sinkholes. They were everywhere. But I never fell, because there were many of you here whom God used to be my life preserver. Thank you for all your brotherly care. I will undoubtedly miss the camaraderie and the privilege of leading men and women in the police service. In all my assignments, I have always emphasized the importance of having knowledge, ability, and discipline, all 3 in one. And housekeeping was also my priority. I had taught my men not just by words, but by actions on how to be a man, a woman, a father, a mother, a colleague, a friend, a fellow man, and a warrior. And yes, it was indeed fulfilling. And as I face the next chapter of my life, even in my retirement, I shall remain to be your force multiplier. Sabi nga nila, FM. And I will proudly watch and cheer you up as you continue to march for the future. And most importantly, I will always keep you in my daily prayers. Once again, on this day of my retirement, it is such an honor that you are all here as witnesses of God's goodness to me. Thank you so much, and rest assured that I will always carry a part of you with me as I continue to travel in this lifetime. Maraming salamat po, at mabuhay ang Philippine National Police, mabuhay ang Philippine National Police Academy, mabuhay tayong lahat.
No, on.
Thank you, sir.